Hello, Shaun Attwood here, London-based author and activist doing coronavirus videos. I've got a playlist in the description box. Now, with all of the fake cures being advertised and the hoax videos and the crazy conspiracy theories, I'm trying to look at this thing as rationally as possible now by studying the Spanish flu. I've watched numerous documentaries and lectures on YouTube, and I'm going to put a link in the description box below this video to a lecture called The Genesis of the 1918 Spanish Influenza Pandemic, which has been published by the University of Arizona. I've been watching that this morning and it's just blowing my mind, the evolution of the virus, how they jump from birds to horses, back to birds, to pigs, to humans, and how they are constantly evolving at such a fast rate that, we don't see our own evolution, but the rate at which these things are changing is absolutely fascinating. And I'm going to go over some information. Politico did a good article on the Spanish flu and the lessons learned, and I'm going to get some bullet points from that as well. But just to give you some background, because people are clamoring right now to these theories, hoax cures, fake videos, and they're making their behaviour more irrational. My thing all along has been to get people information from people who are ahead of us here in the UK, people in Spain, people in Italy, and to transfer that information to you guys out there so you can see what is heading our way. We had a big percentage rise in the number of deaths in the UK, and the government, I've got a source in the hospital, the government is preparing for a maximum ICU capacity in the second, third weeks of April. They think that this first wave will be hitting us hard now. People are saying it's only killing off the old people again and the sick people. Again, one of the things I'm going to talk about in this video is these pandemics last for a few years usually before we get our defences up against them and they mutate and go off somewhere else. But they come in waves. It was the second wave of the Spanish flu that caused the chaos. 100% fatal for pregnant women, and it was killing people with the most robust immune systems because they were giving the biggest responses. But just to give you a bit of background on the Spanish flu then, before I get into the lessons learned about the fake cures. I'm waking up, I've got all these messages coming in with fake cures, fake videos, and this is exactly what happened during the Spanish flu, but without the internet. So, let's just give a bit of history. So it's March 1918, World War I, soldiers in Fort Riley, Kansas began exhibiting the symptoms: aches, respiratory distress, chills, coughing, high fever. A month later, over 1,100 men had come down with the disease. 4% had died. And we've seen right now, if you look at the stats on the worldometer for coronavirus, it's showing about 4%. So that's how the Spanish flu started. Troops moved across Europe, and then it ended up claiming tens of millions of lives. Over 600,000 Americans. And estimates range from 50 million to 100 million dead worldwide. So it began in the army camps. 25% of the soldiers developed the flu, spread it to civilians. In Boston, 202 people died in one day, October the 1st. Then Philadelphia had 700 dead in a 24-hour period. Urban areas were hit, rural areas, Arkansas, especially where public health care was the lowest. And that's what I've been saying. It's the health care, the absence of the beds in the intensive care units and the absence of oxygen and ventilators that's going to cause the deaths. We don't have the resources to deal with this many patients. I did write a letter to T-Bone in Arizona prison yesterday, warning him, because once it hits the public at large in Arizona, they're not going to spend the resources to help the prisoners. They're just going to be allowed to die. That's why you saw the prisoners rioting in Italy, and that's why you saw prisoners get freed in Iran. So, it lasted just over a year, 1918, 1919, and it's demonstrated how governments and people failed to believe it, to accept it, and to take the necessary steps. We've seen exactly the same today. Lack of leadership from Washington, lack of leadership in the UK, Boris Johnson stuttering and stammering and umming and ahhing. The kids are still going to schools here in this country as of Friday. And no wonder the deaths have just jumped up so much in this country. Public officials during the Spanish flu lied, dissembled, made up facts. Well, that started in China right away when they tried to hide it. And people used popular media to misinform the public and make a quick buck in the process. Snake oil, cures and all kinds. Public health infrastructure was insufficient to give the people the medical treatment. Exactly the same. Ordinary citizens refused to take the warnings of the experts. I gave you the story of the boy who cried wolf. We were told SARS was going to go worldwide. It didn't. People panicked. Ebola, it didn't. People panicked. And now we got the big one, the real deal, and people don't believe the experts anymore. And that's what the experts deserve, because they have been full of disinformation in the past, especially the mainstream media. But now there are certain people we definitely need to be listening to. And I liked what the doctor on Joe Rogan had to say, and also Dr. Campbell. And I did mention Cottrell and Molyneux yesterday. I got a backlash from that. I said Molyneux was respected. And I only saw him on Joe Rogan. I didn't realise that a lot of people considered him like a neo-Nazi. So apologies if I caused any offence there. I wasn't aware of his background. Alright, back to the Spanish flu. So it was far more lethal because treatments were nowhere near as advanced. In 1918, developments in medicine and health had rendered diseases like cholera, typhoid and diphtheria sure killers in recent memory. They were manageable or even preventable. America's cities and its military had extensive experience with quarantines and other social measures to stop transmission. But it was the government bungling Boris and a lack of preparedness that helped the pandemic spread like wildfire. I have not been advocating panic on this channel. I am just trying to show people what's coming to their neighbourhood to help them become prepared. My whole purpose is preparation. So, history is bound to repeat itself, and, you know, that's what we've got right now. So let's look at what went wrong. So, Philadelphia. The government failed to meet the health crisis. It took root on September 7th. 300 sailors infected docked in the Navy Yard. Boston had been hard hit, but officials were aware of its deadly potential. The city, whose infrastructure buckled before the war, was teeming with new workers and migrants who stretched the housing stock, streets and transportation to capacity. It took but 10 days before over 600 servicemen and civilians were sick enough to require hospitalisation, including doctors and nurses. And that's what we're going to get. They're calling in the old people, the retirees, to get on the front line of the coronavirus battle, knowing that they're the group that are going to die. That's like a suicide mission. Alright, Philadelphia's Director of Public Health and Charities, a political appointment, was Dr. Wilma Cruzen, a gynecologist who lacked training in epidemiology. And you got these stuffed shirt experts on TV and in politics who have no training whatsoever in disease detection. So this guy back then, Wilma, downplayed the severity of the threat. Oh, flu kills more people. Oh, it's only killing the old people and the sick in Italy. Oh, only so many hundred have died. All of the news media, mainstream and alternative, I'm hearing both of those cliches. And exactly the same thing happened during the Spanish flu. But just wait until wave 2 comes of coronavirus and then say those things. Because we don't know what it's going to mutate into next. That's going to be if the system's breaking now and a wave 2 comes that's like this, 100% fatal for pregnant women, killing people with good immune systems. I can't even imagine, but let's pray that it doesn't. Alright, so he said there was nothing to worry about. It wasn't the Spanish flu. It was just a few cases of the old-fashioned flu, or grippe. From now, the disease will decrease. Again, comparisons to the normal flu, old-fashioned flu. Nothing has changed from just over 100 years ago. So, what did good old Wilma do? He took no steps at all to assemble supplies or identify doctors and nurses. It could be made available in the event of mass hospitalizations. He resisted calls by medical professionals that the city quarantine the Navy Yard, just like Boris Johnson has resisted calls to quarantine the schools, to close the schools, the pubs. Oh, it's just... Alright, on September 18, the city even had a parade to support the 4th Liberty Loan Drive. So, this was when World War I, federal government compelled, shamed and goaded citizens into conforming from the Sedition Act, which forbade interference in the sale of war bonds to the legions of the 4-minute men who delivered patriotic speeches in movie theatres, as the reels were being changed to say nothing of the horrific acts of violence against German Americans. Public spirited demanded that the parade go on. Tens of thousands of Philadelphians lined the streets for the parade, providing an opportunity for the virus to spread. Within 10 days, over 1,000 lay dead, with 200,000 ill, and the government in Harrisburg ordered the city's public amusements and gathering places closed down, a ban that shuttered saloons, theatres, ice cream parlours, movie theatres, but it was too little, too late. Body count continued to climb. Catholic Archbishop assigned 3,000 nuns and seminarians to staff makeshift hospitals and dig mass graves. By March 1919, when the threat of flu lifted, Philadelphia had lost 15,000 people. And this is just going to be part 1 of this series about the flu compared to the Spanish flu, compared to coronavirus, lessons learned. We've got to look at history and model our behaviour accordingly. These people are trying to profit by saying they've got cures, putting out hoax videos. Really, you guys, honestly, should be ashamed of yourselves trying to take advantage of people who are frightened during what's happening. So if you're enjoying these videos, please subscribe. Subscription logo bottom right hand corner. Huge thank you to people who've donated on PayPal, Patreon, subscribe, start just giving. All the links are in the description box, as are links to all of my socials and my big playlist. People watching right now: true crime podcasts, Epstein, royal family, Sonia Poulton, hitting it hard on the True Crime Podcast, clips coming up. Alright, thank you for your love and support. Cheers from London. I hope you're safe wherever you are in the world. Take care.